What's up, everybody, and welcome to ITG Daily, the show that brings you the hottest in gaming news. I'm Drew Bosley. You can find me on Twitter at ArtisticGamer28. That's the one, the only Scott Savage. You can find him on Twitter at Savage. Scott, what's happening, buddy?
Oh, another day and another full day of gaming, right? I need a new set of eyes. I've been burning them out lately. There's just too much to play.
Oh man, well, we got lots to talk about today, so you should be joining us live every day, Monday to Friday at 11 a.m. Eastern over on twitch.tv/the official ITG or YouTube. But if you can't join us live, then hit us up later. InsideTheGame.ca, podcast services, and TV streaming networks around the globe. Scott, coming up on today's show, Netflix wants to bring games to the service. Head of Xbox looks at the PlayStation 5 Dual Sense for possible Xbox controller changes, and Stadia introduces a new rev share for pro titles. You ready to jump in?
I'm ready, and the Xbox one has my curiosity. I think that's the standout for today.
For me, it's Netflix. Let's talk about it, because Netflix will reportedly offer video games within the next year. Wow. Okay, well, let's get into it, because TV and movie streaming giant Netflix could offer video games as part of its subscription from as early as next year, a new report claims. According to Bloomberg, a person familiar with the situation has stated that video games could appear within the next year, being available alongside the service's current content as a new standalone genre. Apparently, Netflix doesn't have any plans to charge any extra for the video game content on offer, presumably meaning that current subscribers would be able to access the games at no extra steps required. The report notes that Netflix has hired former Electronic Arts and Oculus veteran Mike Verdu as its vice president of game development. Previously, Verdu worked on Facebook's vice president and was in charge of helping developers bring their titles and games over to the Oculus VR platform. Scott, we've all seen, Stranger Things 3 kind of be a partnership with Nintendo and Netflix. We've seen the adaptation of Netflix get with The Witcher, bringing a TV series. We're now getting ready for season 2 to come out, and dude, I can't wait. But the thing is, this makes a lot of sense, Scott. Like, a lot of sense. You figure Netflix is the biggest streaming platform right now as far as entertainment goes. You see Stadia come out. They want a piece of the pie now to get into the world of what they feel is their next and upcoming service. Xbox then comes to the table now and brings us they've changed. I keep calling it Project xCloud, dude. I'm just so used to their their usual title. So their xCloud streaming game service now is coming over as well for Xbox. Everybody's jumping on the bandwagon, and video games is the biggest source of entertainment around the industry together. Like, combined, it outbeats movies. Like, it hands down beats Netflix, right? So why not bring in, where you already have such a massive platform, bring in the side of video games? When we watched The Witcher, dude, what did I want to do? I wanted to go back and play The Witcher, but I held off, Scott, because I know they're working on a new rendition of it for PS5 and Xbox Series X. So I'm waiting. But otherwise, I probably would have jumped in. And this is the tie-in now too that you can see, Scott, is the fact that when you watch a show that is video game related, you're gonna then want to go check out that game. Now, it keeps them around on the service even longer.
Well, there's also the Castlevania series, and there's the Resident Evil animation that has also come onto the Netflix platform. So I definitely feel the same things. Oh, sounds like a jet engine landing next to me.
That was your stomach. You sound real hungry.
But I definitely feel what you're saying, though. If I watch this Resident Evil, I'm definitely gonna jump headlong into Village, and it's hard for me to resist that. So this does seem like quite a sensible pairing. But I'm curious as to what titles they're going to bring. Will it be the standard sort of games that we know are coming out in current generation, or is this going to be a retro kind of idea? I'm not sure if it's clear, but having the Oculus former big guy is also very curious to me. Is this going to be a VR inclusion? How's that going to work?
Absolutely. Northern Nerdcast joins us over on Twitch and says, yeah, for point and click games, so much for the $3 billion deal with Sony. right? So that could be a $3 billion deal as far as movies are concerned. But when you get in the world of games, like the video game industry was a $200 billion industry last year. We're up 19% over last year as well. Like the video game industry is a massive market. So when you have such a streaming service like Netflix, dude, it makes a lot of sense. Now, this does raise a little concern for me in the sense of where does Stadia lie now when it comes to competing with one of the biggest streaming platforms around? I think they're going to have to, over at Netflix, restructure some of their infrastructure due to the fact that games are a little more tasking than, say, streaming a movie. I would almost guarantee that, because now you're getting into all the controls and just different mechanics, right? You're there for a lot longer. You're not there for just an hour and a half, even a 3-hour movie now, right? You're now for hours. You play The Witcher. Some people put 400 hours into that game.
Yeah.
So you're there for a lot longer, and a lot more people playing on that platform as well.
I have a kind of a funny thought. How long until we get Skyrim on Netflix?
That's probably the first title to launch on it, man. Let's be honest.
It's just about the only place where it's not playable
so far. The thing is, too, like, so I was speaking with my girlfriend about this morning, and she was asking, how would you play the game? Because if you watch Netflix right now, there's no controller attached to that at all, right? Where if you have Stadia as an example, you then tap into their Chromecast at the back of your TV, and it has their own dedicated controller. Note though, Scott, we also can connect to the PC and tap in with like an Xbox or a PlayStation controller. Maybe Netflix looks at that kind of model and says, we don't want to build a controller. Bring your own controller over to the service, tap in through your PC, your laptop, or maybe even Bluetooth it to new smart TVs or like my iPad as another example, and play the game that way. That could be another option as well.
Yeah, well, and thinking back to Brad's comment on the Sony deal, perhaps it's something that only appears console side, which would be an interesting way of doing it, but that would take care of the controller issue.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I'm curious to see what lies ahead, but man, Netflix getting in the realm of games. We've heard that they wanted to do this for a while now, and it's not really that surprising, right? Like, we keep touching on the fact that it's one of the biggest streaming platforms around, and then if you can bring the video game side of it into the mix as well, man, like this is a one-stop shop, but why go anywhere else?
Yeah, well, and it would certainly help justify all the money I've put towards Netflix my whole life already. I'm one of the few that provide the Netflix account for all of my friends that end up using it. But if there was gaming that comes along with that, then I'm even more happy to pay that money. That's money well spent, in my opinion, already. But if they have any sort of exclusives or things that just pop up that are first on Netflix or something like that, that's a whole new venue to bring things to. I think that's great.
And they're leaving it, rumors are having it right now that they're leaving the subscription base at the same price. They're not even upping the price, Scott, which is shocking to see that they're not going to dab in and go, hey, we just brought video games over. Here's an extra, you want this too? Another $5, right? Like, how many people would be all over that? Movies, games, all in one place. You wouldn't have to go anywhere. The best part about Stadia, Scott, is it you enter your code, you buy your game, whatever you do, you're done. You don't have to worry about an install or an update or anything along those lines either, right? I talk about it all the time, the fact that I have no room on my newest consoles. I'm constantly deleting stuff to make room for something new to come onto the console. Where Stadia, dude, I literally just downloaded a code the other day and it was in, right? It was that simple. I just click a button and I play, and I don't have to worry about storage space. And Netflix could be the same way right here because it's a streaming platform. Man, there's a lot of eyes, I think, going to be watching Netflix, and apparently their shares already went up in a matter of days.
Oh, yeah. Well, getting a piece of that pie, the video game industry being so giant, that makes a lot of sense.
Absolutely. Scott, let's move on to the world of Phil Spencer, because Xbox boss Phil Spencer praises Dual Sense controller and teases Xbox controller upgrade. In a recent podcast appearance on the Kind of Funny Gamecast, the Xbox boss, was asked about a peripheral device that could work on Xbox consoles in the future, to which he replied, there's probably some work that we'll do on the Xbox controller, before referring to Sony's DualSense controller, adding that I think Sony's done a nice job with their controller, and we kind of look at some of that and think, there's things we should do too. So it's nice to see that he's looking at the fact that DualSense, man, had a big impact on the PlayStation 5. Scott, we talked about it before.
Yeah.
The DualSense controller and the way the haptic feedback works and all those little new trinkets on a next-gen controller makes a world of difference, especially when you get into Ratchet and Clank or you get into Returnal. And I touch on it all the time, that the fact that the raindrops, I could feel the raindrops in the controller, man. It was actually one of the coolest experience I've had in a long time when it comes to the world of video games and holding on a controller that felt different than what we've had in the past.
No, that's awesome. And if you think back just a few years, from the Xbox 360 era and PlayStation 3, their controllers were almost interchangeable.
Yeah.
Yes, the thumbsticks are different, but all of the same buttons are there, the shoulder buttons. But since PlayStation 4, this PlayStation controller has gotten a lot more advanced with the touchpad and now these DualSense kind of haptic feedback. There hasn't been a lot of innovation prior. So this is kind of, I think, what's the catalyst to get everybody to look at what their controllers can do. And I'm actually very comforted that Xbox is looking at PlayStation's controller as opposed to Nintendo's. Nintendo was the first, I believe, to innovate with the haptic feedback and the kind of motion controls.
Yeah.
But everybody knows about the stick drift issue, so I would like Xbox to stay away from that.
Northern Nerdcast says best controller, hands down. I don't know, man. I don't know. I do love my Elite controller. It's definitely a step up from where Xbox lies, but it doesn't have that haptic feedback. And you don't want to play with haptic feedback when it comes to multiplayer games. I know a lot of people actually turn that off, the whole feature, because it can hinder the overall outcome of your game, right, when it gets into a competitive sense. But when you're playing single player content, dude, turn that on, because you're not going to have another sensation like that. And I'm looking forward to it too, because when Horizon Forbidden West launches, you know that's integrated as well, right? And you're going to get all of those features and things like that. I'm a big fan of the actual touchpad itself. I love being able to click that and just pop the map up. I think that's one of the cooler features that we've seen versus the past. I know we've done it before where you'd hit the select button or the start button and then your menu or the map would pop. But in this case, dude, it's so easy. And I'm a big fan of the speaker that's on the controller. I know a lot of people don't like it.
Oh, yeah.
But dude, when you play MLB The Show and you get the chirp and the chatter coming through the controller, it just kind of brings that experience up a little bit more. I think it's really, really cool. I like where Sony's heading with their controller. I'm definitely happy that Phil and the team over at Xbox are looking at that and going, okay, you know, we have some cool features on our controllers, but we need to maybe take a look at the haptic feedback and the dual sense and how do we integrate that into our controllers moving forward in the future. And I think that'll keep, you know what, Scott, like, competition is good because it always makes one or the other come back and want to step up their gameplay as well.
Yeah, well, it's been over a decade since Xbox has really kind of put some changes into their controller. Yeah. So I think it's more than time, and this is a very high standard to raise to. I think it's good for everybody, though.
Absolutely. Scott, we were just talking about him. Let's get into Stadia introducing a 70% rev share for a pro subscription. Google's cloud gaming service will also get an 85-15 split on individual game sales and an affiliate marketing program. Google is introducing a new rev share model for its Stadia Pro subscription, which will give partner developers an additional source of income each month. The scheme will come into effect by the end of July, after which any title included in Stadia Pro, which gives subscribers access to a library of games for a monthly fee, a share of the money generated by the service. It was announced during a Stadia keynote earlier in the week at Google Game Summit, in which the company described it as an industry-leading share. 70% of all money revenue generated by the Pro subscription will be split between partners based upon how many session days players have spent on their games. So, in other words, this is how it goes. One user playing a Stadia Pro title once on one day and once the next would count as 2 sessions. However, a user playing twice on the same day counts as 1 session. What do you think of this move, Scott? It seems like Stadia is looking, they almost seem like they're kind of scrambling now at this point to bring any kind of title to the platform to keep it alive and well.
Yeah, this is definitely to make it more attractive to partners, to bring in more titles. I,
Sure.
I wasn't necessarily aware of a slowdown of things coming to Stadia, but this is a way of making the partners really think about if they want to come to Stadia. And I think people who use the platform, you and I, we've been interested in it from the start. So I want to
Yeah.
see it kind of join the club and get the new game releases on Stadia as well. And this just seems to embolden that.
I think they've done well. They've had their hurdles without a doubt. Stadia, I'm a big fan of what Stadia is and the ability. Dude, I just got Rainbow Six on it. Like, I'm pumped to play Rainbow Six on there.
That'll
And
be the test.
well, and we jumped on it, and I was just kind of going, well, like, does it compare to when I played on my Xbox Series X? That's the biggest thing, because now we're into a streaming platform. Can you play a competitive shooter on a streaming platform? I'm lucky and unfortunate that I have good internet. It did just die on us here not too long ago, Scott, but for the most part, I have good internet, right? So I'm able to kind of heighten up on some of my gameplay experiences because of it. And Stadia is just one of those things, dude. I grab my phone and it's so convenient, is what Stadia is. And I really, really do love the platform. But when now they're kind of, did we talk about how they shut down their first party development studio, right? And they lost
That
Jade
is
Raymond.
that's the biggest shot in the foot I believe they've
Oh,
ever done. Is
absolutely.
we enjoyed Guilt, and I was hoping for a sequel of sorts, and just the idea that it was a whole new venue with its own exclusives is really exciting.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure if this will be what kind of spurs that on again, but it definitely seems possible because they're assessing their whole model.
Yeah, and I think they've had to make these, adjustments to entice other people to come in, because I can get all these games on all my other platforms, on my other consoles, whether I'm on PlayStation or whether I'm on Xbox. A lot of these titles are already there, and then they've been brought over to Stadia. So when I already own the game, why would I want to pick up my Stadia? Because I've already played it. And that's the biggest
Mhm.
thing when it comes to Stadia, is their library doesn't hold anything that's exclusive for the most part, or new and enticing to bring me over to their platform. They're slowly starting to grow some of this ecosystem that they're building upon, but it's taken them a long time. And I'm curious to see now if we're kind of more or less getting into a Steam model, and that's what their focus is on now as a platform for Stadia, is to just have a library of games that you can take on the go. But as we just touched on with Netflix, I might be able to do the same thing with them, and we know we right now we can do it with Project X Cloud. I'm still going to call it
Mhm.
that. So,
Yeah, no, that's just ingrained. It's I won't be able to. They could rename it whatever they like, and it's still going to be a Project X Cloud to me. But
yeah,
we're seeing this new era of mobile gaming, mobile centric development.
yeah.
So it is curious as to how this subscription base is going to fit and adapt to that.
No, absolutely curious. Scott, why don't you take this next one? Because I know you're pretty pumped for it.
Yes, that is Ghostwire Tokyo. Now, unfortunately, or perhaps fortunately, it
Yeah.
was really up in the air at this moment, but it has been delayed until early 2022. So this is, again, unfortunate in some regards, but at the same time, if it's not quite ready, it needs more time in the oven. And this is a release from Tango, the developer. They have delayed the release of the game to early 2020, and they're quoted as saying, "We've made this decision to delay the launch of Ghostwire. We want to get the game in your hands as soon as possible so you can experience the unforgettable version of a haunted Tokyo that we've been working hard at building. At the same time, we're also focusing on protecting the health of everyone at Tango. Our new release window will give us time to bring the world of Ghostwire Tokyo to life as we've always envisioned it." So this is actually quite considerate when you're thinking about the developers, and they've undoubtedly been hit with the same kind of pandemic
Yeah.
delays. So this just takes a little bit of that stress off to push that deadline to make a good product. We've seen how that's worked in the contrary.
Yep.
So I think this is a very self-protective kind of move, but I am always of the opinion if it needs a little more time, it should take it.
Yeah.
A game that releases too early and is
Huh.
bad or bugged, that will be bad for almost forever. We've only ever seen one game bounce back from that, and that would be No Man's Sky, surprisingly. But
Yeah.
it's always better just take the time, have the proper release window, and that will keep the popularity going. Nobody wants to have their name, their studio in the news in the same way CD Projekt Red is.
No, absolutely. Because it's like I've been talking to Northern Nerdcast about it all the time. Him and I go back and forth on this one, and it's one of those things. Like I'm not going back, dude. Like I don't want to go back. They're talking about DLC, and I'm just like, nope. It's so tainted now, right? That you just can't get out of that mind share of, well, it's fixed. Well, is it? And if it is, too late. Like that's the problem. So when you get one shot to launch a new IP, a new title, or even a sequel, you just do it right. And if you do it right, then that's where the impact comes in. But the biggest problem lies is when you have investors and they're looking for their return, and then that's why some of these games just get shipped out, and that's they know the bugs are there, and there's nothing they can do about it because they have deadlines to meet as a developer to keep their investors happy. But if they're able to take the time like they are over at Tango, man, that's the way to do it. Absolutely. Scott, you might as well keep going, buddy, because this one's for you too.
I figured you'd say that, actually. This is from the Atlas company. Now, they're the developers of Persona.
Yeah.
So there has been kind of a nonchalant way of confirming that there is going to be a Persona 6, and it is going to be worked on very shortly. So this has been seemingly confirmed by Atlas through job listings. Now, we've seen this sort of reveal before, and it has turned out to be true. Now, Atlas Japan has posted several new job listings to a Japanese website called Green. According to the translation, and that's coming from Persona Central, several current Atlas developers are interviewed at the job listings, and the director of Atlas, Naoto Hirioka, is very casually mentioning Persona 6. He says, thanks to the large amount of support we received for Persona 5, which I believe was absolutely giant, we have gotten a sense of accomplishment, but we can't stop there. When we created Persona 4, there was pressure that it had to exceed Persona 3. Now we will have to create 6, which has to exceed 5. However, exceeding 5 will be difficult with the current staff, and they would like to surpass the hurdle with everybody new to join the company. They want to expand in order to meet that demand. And I think that's the right decision. In the same way that delaying a game is, I think if they need to look at restructuring their company just to maintain that level of quality, I think that would be the right decision as well.
No, I think so, Scott. I think you nailed it, dude. Persona 6, I know Persona has a unique following. It's definitely not one that gravitates to me. I would think that'd be more in the realm of Northern Nerdcasts. But
Scott, I'm excited about that one. I'm all about anime games now.
I know.
I say weird. Anime games is an easy way of explaining it, but I was super psyched for Scarlet Nexus. I see this Persona kind of style, and I'm all in.
No, it's definitely very cool. Scott, that's going to wrap up today's show. Everybody, thank you for hanging out with us. And don't forget, you can always join us live over on twitch.tv/theofficialitg, as well as YouTube. But if you can't join us live, not a big deal. Hit us up later, InsideTheGame.ca, podcast services, and TV streaming networks around the globe. I'm Drew, that's Scott, and we'll see you back tomorrow inside the game.